back.
Yeah, mic check was good. Oh man, we're back. We are officially live. Welcome to Kicking the Real podcast. I am your host, Andy Diosa. If you're a first time listener, thank you for being here. And as always, if you're a multiple time listener, thank you for being here. Man, there's so much going on right now. And when I started this podcast, I realized that it might sometimes not have the structure. I might talk soccer, I might talk music, I might talk running, I might talk food. And that's the beauty of it, having a platform and kind of talk about whatever you want. So initially, I had an idea to do some MLS stuff and get on here and have a winners and losers episode. But this time of the year, there is just everything is happening in the sports world. So I said, why not? Let's do another random thoughts episode, which was well received the last time I did it. And it's just a way to get a lot of information and really a lot that's on my mind out there because I've been having many conversations with friends and different people in the media landscapes and things of that nature. And it's just so much to talk about. So this is going to be the lay of the land for this episode. It's going to be all over the place. And you're only going to get this type of episode here because I know there's no other podcast linking these bridges the way I am going to. I'm going to start with Steve Cherundolo, LAFC head coach, because I've been meaning to talk about that for a while. And I think we have gathered enough information to kind of go a little deep in that segment. So I'm going to start there for my soccer fans and my MLS fans that are here tapped in for that. Then I'm going to pivot to the NBA playoffs because they are on, they're popping. It's vintage basketball in some series. Some other series are a joke. Some teams are already eliminated as the recording of this episode on Monday, April 28th. So we're going to touch on a few things NBA playoffs. And then I will finish with Shedeur Sanders and the noise surrounding him, his slide in the NFL draft, if you will. That's what they're calling it, and just a little bit of my thought process on, well, not thought process, just a little bit of my thoughts on that and the process that he had to go through to get drafted by the Cleveland Browns. But anyway, that's gonna be the rundown. So maybe in the episode description, I'll kind of put the timestamps and let you know what's where. So if you're here for soccer, you could tap in at this time. If you're here for basketball, tap in at that time. I suggest you listen to the whole thing because why not? It's gonna be a glorious episode, and it's a good time to tap in with the sports world, better than really any time, honestly. And shout out to the Stanley Cup playoffs too. I haven't been following closely because there's so much going on, but playoff hockey is always elite, always amongst one of the best playoffs anyway. So, like I mentioned, there's a lot going on. We will start with Steve Cherundolo. 10 days ago, exactly, the LAFC head coach, uh, out of nowhere, announced that he would be stepping down at the end of this MLS season. And it was very random. It caught everybody by surprise. Probably the timing was the most, I would say, shocking thing of the whole announcement, besides the fact that he's moving on from this job. But I'm gonna read basically what he said in the press release, saying that it was an honor to be the head coach of LAFC. After much reflection and discussion with his family, he made the decision that at the end of this year he will return to Germany. I love Los Angeles and LAFC, but this move is the best interest of my family, even as it will ultimately take us away from a team, city, organization, and fan base that I am proud to represent. I am looking forward to continuing our work with the players, coaches, and staff to make the 2025 season a success as we keep fighting to win trophies. Now, I'm just going to say this first. Steve Cherundolo has done a really good job as LAFC head coach. He was hired in 2022, and he became the only coach in MLS history to win the Supporters Shield and MLS Cup in his first season. A great feat for LAFC as a team and him as a head coach. And then he won also the U.S. Open Cup last year when LAFC beat Sporting Kansas City. On top of that, LAFC has had great success in going to these different finals and not being lucky enough to win more trophies under him, which is always an overlying, I guess, discussion when it comes to Steve Cherundolo. But success is success, and getting there is something that has to be accounted for. And I've talked about that on this podcast before as well. We'll put that aside because Steve Cherundolo, good head coach. But let's start with the timing. The timing comes after LAFC gets eliminated, not directly after it gets, but soon after it gets eliminated from CONCACAF Champions Cup in a very, very poor way, losing to Inter Miami down in South Florida in a game they should have won. You have to remember that they also played Columbus Crew the round before that and snuck by and probably should have lost to the Columbus Crew. So I said during that tournament, there's some signs warning signs that you should not be ignoring. After the Columbus one, after the Columbus loss, more notably, Steve Cherundolo called his team out. And it was the first time that I really saw that from him. And I said it on the podcast in a previous episode that leads me to believe that he's not completely happy with what is happening with LAFC. That aside, I'm not saying that these two things are mixing up and that's exactly what happened, because if Steve Cherundolo says it's a family, better for his family, if it's a family decision, who am I to not believe that, right? Family comes first. We all know that. He has kids. He has a great past and history in Germany. I don't blame anybody for trying to leave this country right now either. So there's a lot of factors there. We're going to take Steve Cherundolo for his word, but that doesn't mean we can't analyze the surroundings and how this is all unfolding. LAFC is just not in a good spot, and it's as simple as it gets. I think it's been blatantly obvious that this team has not been playing up to the potential and kind of just been scratching, clawing, treading water was a term that was used this past weekend. And that's not the LAFC standard. There is a certain arrogance and a certain standard that LAFC functions by, and they're not there right now. And I think that Steve Cherundolo hit a ceiling with this LAFC team because all of the conversation around them has been it's boring soccer. He's not able to kind of change that system. They're not really possessing the ball. Like there's different ways that you could slice it and how LAFC has been this season and prior. But when you're winning and things of that nature, it's kind of hard to be like, well, yeah, this sucks, but right now they're not winning, and that's where it becomes a little important to me to kind of analyze how Steve has announced this, not even in the middle of the season, kind of just like in the first quarter of the season, knowing that there's all this time ahead for LAFC and they're just not at a good level right now. Now, the obvious part is him announcing it early allows LAFC to say, "Hey, this is an open job. Please, if you are interested in taking over this position, please reach out." So that is a plus for LAFC. Obviously, Steve Cherundolo, I feel if he had this idea in his head, it probably should have been something that was announced in the beginning of the season or maybe at the end of the season. But the happening the way it is, it almost has me thinking like if LAFC really hits a rough patch this year, where do they go from there? They know the coach is leaving at the end of the year. Maybe some players are kind of just like, we're not bought into this system. I don't know. Now, Steve Cherundolo announced in the press release he was leaving. He did not talk to media, right? They play in Portland. He gets a red card on the sidelines, so he can't answer any questions after the game because he got red carded. He got suspended for the next game. So just follow this timeline along, right? So Steve Cherundolo's first media appearance was this past week prior to the St. Louis game, a game which he was not coaching in. I remind you, he got a red card in Portland. It means he was suspended. It means he was not coaching in St. Louis. Now, he gets in front of the media virtually, people that are also at the Performance Center. And the first question, naturally, as it should be, comes from my friend Josh Gross, who does a great job covering LAFC for the LA Daily News. And he asked Steve, like, "Hey, this is the first time you're speaking since the announcement. Like, what are your sentiments? Kind of like, where did this come from? Do you want to talk about it?" And Steve says, "No, I prefer not to. I prefer not to talk about it. I prefer to focus on St. Louis." Once again, a game he was not coaching in because he got a red card and he was suspended. And that right there is MLS at its finest. I think that there's a lack of transparency across the board in too many ways, and him not wanting to speak about this, if it is, like I mentioned, if it's a personal thing, a family thing, I understand that, I respect that. Us as media have a job and a right to kind of poke and try to find out and see what the issue is, or just what he wanted to share. Didn't want to share anything. I followed up with a question and asked him basically, which is funny that I asked it and framed it this way because I knew what the answer was going to be, but basically, like, what are their emotions to know that at the end of this year he's walking away from something that he was pretty accomplished in and was able to bring success to the team, to the city, and all of that. And he answered the way he typically does and said, along the lines of, I'm not thinking about that right now. I'm still focused on what we want to accomplish this season. There's time to talk about that later. And then he ended with, if you want to, what did he say to me, man? I forgot what he said. Something along the lines like, there'll be time to talk about that if you want to sit down at the end of the season and talk about it. And I was like, okay, I'll be waiting for it. And he laughed. And I bring that up because when LAFC won the MLS Cup in 2022, that following season during preseason, I sat down with Steve one-on-one and I asked him a similar question. I said, is there ever a moment where you kind of just take a step back and see how fast this is all happening and what you're able to accomplish? And I wish I still had the recording from the interview. It was like the same exact answer. And he basically was like, one day when I'm in my garden and like I'm done coaching, we could talk about it or something like that. It's just that's just not his style. He's not an emotional guy. He continues to say that. He doesn't really big himself up, which is fine. That's the way he is. It's cool. But once again, no transparency. We don't know much of anything besides him saying it's a family thing. JT, John Thornton, the general manager who speaks up a lot, has been pretty quiet. So all of that to say that something there just doesn't seem right to me. I'm not saying that it's leading him to leave. I'm not saying that he got fired. I'm not saying any of that. I'm not making any assumptions. It's just a very weird situation because of the way LAFC has been playing, because of all of the noise that has been around LAFC's playing style. The fan base is very adamant about Dolo Out, especially on social media, and that type of stuff always gets back to the organization, always gets back to the source, to the person that they're talking about. So I just feel like all of these things were swirling around, and it just, to me, it seems like cool, we're gonna split and go our separate ways. And from what I know, from what we gathered, from the little bit of information that we were able to get, he basically pulled a few players over at practice. I'm not sure exactly who. I know Aaron Long and Mark Delgado were part of those players. I could kind of get a trend of like the type of player that he brought, a veteran player, people that have been around the league. Mark Delgado was interesting because he just got to LAFC. And he said something interesting because Steve Cherundolo was a big reason why he went to LAFC. And he, of course, like everybody's saying, they respect the family decision. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But he was saying, I wish I was going to be able to spend more time with Steve. And that's unfortunately not the case. And he kind of equated it to, well, he used to play for the Galaxy. Now he plays for LAFC. And a big reason why he stayed in LA was family. His wife wanted to stay local, but also because Steve was at LAFC and somebody that was really pushing for him. So just different things like that. But anyway, he pulls these players into his office and he kind of gives them a forewarning, like, hey, this is happening. This is what's going to go down. And then he addresses the team as a whole. So you could read into things however you want. I'll stay to the point that this just seems very odd all around, but it does offer LAFC a runway. I'm just very interested at how the rest of this year pans out, because a perfect example was they play St. Louis on Sunday Night Soccer. Denny Bouanga, the Denny Bouanga experience this year has been incredible. He's good and bad in the same games, and it's funny. He misses a PK, he misses a wide open goal, but he scores 2 goals, including the late equalizer in stoppage time, which was an amazing goal. Speed, muscle, skill, he does it all in one play, and he's fired up. But Ante Razov coached that game because, once again, Steve Cherundolo was suspended because he got a red card in Portland. And Ante Razov, after the game, kind of opened up a little bit and was like, hey, man, like, people are not stepping up, and we need other players besides Denny Bouanga to step up. And Steve has said that before, so I don't want to say, oh, Steve wouldn't say that, but it's just how things are happening and how things are unfolding that I'm saying, don't ignore warning signs. Just pay close attention to how everything is going down with LAFC. Most importantly, they asked him about Olivier Giroud, and Ante was like, this is the part that got me. Ante said, this is a guy who is advanced, obviously French leading goal scorer in the nation's history, World Cup champion. You don't have to really go down the list of accolades for Olivier Giroud. And he said, maybe this is not the right, what did he say? Maybe this is not the perfect system, something along those lines. I don't remember exactly what he said. Maybe this is not the ideal system for him, but he's trying. Who sets the system? That's a coaching decision, right? So listen, when coaches are analyzed and when coaches are sometimes fired or they move on, a lot of the times it's because of this stubbornness, because they don't want to change their ways, because they want to stick to their ways. Whether or not you think that's right or wrong, That's fine. That's for you to analyze. But Steve Cherundolo, once again, I think his ceiling with LAFC, and it doesn't seem like there's in a direction for him to move in that organization with the players they have right now. So it just everything just I don't know. The split seems very perfect timing aside from the actual timing of the announcement, but it just seems like it's something that it's probably going to be for the better for LAFC. Now, I will say this: there a lot of times in MLS, you get Austin FC is the perfect example. You'll say you have calls from coaches all over the world, and then you end up with a coach that was already coaching in MLS. I would not be surprised if Jim Curtin is the front runner for this position. LAFC is a very attractive opening for anybody that's a head coach and that wants to go into MLS or that has been around MLS because they have flexibility with the roster. They have the designated player spots. John Thornton loves to spend money. He's aggressive. It's going to be interesting to see how this coaching search unfolds, if that's what it is. But at the end of the day, teams that have success in MLS, or coaches that have success in MLS rather, are ones that know the league because it's a very unique league in the way rosters construction is, the way salary is, and just all the different intricacies of MLS that I would not be surprised to see someone like Jim Curtin with MLS experience take over that role. He just has to be fine with walking around the LAPC and seeing Gareth Bale dunk on Elliott for MLS Cup. If he's fine with seeing that picture on a daily basis in the training grounds, I think he'll be all right. But that's getting way ahead of it. I just wanted to say a little bit about that because the situation was very interesting and it will continue to be interesting. And that's what I think we have to continue watching. How does this go along for LAFC during this year? Because they're talking about winning trophies and that's always what they say. This team right now, for me, is far from that. I'm out on them. As of this moment, I'm out on them. I'm not they're not playing any interesting style to me. None of these players are really standing out, or you're not seeing these natural progressions for certain players that maybe you thought you would. Olivier Giroud, once again, kind of irrelevant on this team. They're trying to piece it together, and it's not working. That's as simple as it gets. And the last thing I'll say on this, because I need to move on. I was talking to somebody in the press box on Sunday, and when the Bob Bradley era ended, a lot of the conversation was he was too stubborn. He didn't want to change the system. It ended up being his downfall. It's deja vu for me right now, honestly. If Steve Cherundolo wanted to continue, I don't doubt that he would have been able to. I don't doubt that Dorrington would have kept him around. But obviously, the way the season unfolds would be important there. But Steve Cherundolo will not be continuing. He will be leaving back to Germany at the end of the season, whether or not LAFC have a good year or not. But keep an eye on it. That's all I'm saying. Just keep an eye on it. We wish him the best. He's always been very nice to me. I don't have nothing bad to say about Steve at all. So maybe he's told me twice there's time to sit down and talk about things. So maybe I'll get out to Germany at some point or find him in whatever theoretical garden he was talking about in 2023 and pick his brain a little bit more because he's certainly an interesting character. But we'll put a bow on that for now and keep an eye on LAFC as the year continues. Okay, let's do NBA playoffs next. Man, wow. The NBA playoffs have been amazing. I'm going to start with this. Everybody during the season, not everybody, but people were complaining, oh, the ratings, oh, the game, all this and that. The product is fine. The product is better than it's ever been. I think for the first time in a long time, you don't know who the clear favorite is to win the NBA title this year. And that's amazing because there are, I would say, 4 to 5 legitimate teams that honestly have a shot at winning this. And it's not anybody's just going to run away with it, which is what you want. Some parity in the league after years of domination from LeBron and Steph, and who are both still in the playoffs as of this moment. So, it's a very interesting dynamic at what's happening for the playoffs. I'm going to start with the Knicks in the Pistons series because that's the one that I think is a big talking point in terms of how it's being officiated. And I don't know. I joked that Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, made a call and was like, "Yo, refs, we need one of them series. We need this Pistons Knicks series to be like it was the '90s because they are out there getting away with murder, things that definitely don't happen during the regular season. They're getting away with, and I like it. I like it. People complain there's too many fouls in the NBA. They slow the game down too much. I enjoy this. But the problem is when you set a precedent as an officiating crew for a series you have to uphold that. You can't one game, or not even just one game, just one play, officiate it one way, call it one way, and then come back and say, oh, no, wait, this play is that. Nah, it's not how it works. So there's a whole conversation about the Josh Hart foul on Tim Hardaway Jr. It was a foul. It was very clearly a foul, as were probably 50 plays in that game. So listen, man, it's a bad way for the Pistons to lose that game in a pivotal game that they would have tied the series up 2-2. Instead, it's 3-1 heading back to New York. But the refs set that precedent and how they're officiating that series. They squabbling out there. So you gotta live with that. I know it's not, maybe it's not right. I'm not saying it is right or wrong, but that's how the dynamic is looking. But shout out to that series because it's been a lot of fun. Cade is a dog. Cade is a real star. He's gonna be a real star in the NBA, and this is like a good way to get those lumps in and get that experience. And I don't think it's over yet, but winning that game, a closeout game at MSG is gonna be crazy to do for the Pistons. But the Knicks finally moved away from the dribble Jalen Brunson ISO and sleep you to death, and they got Cat involved. He made some huge shots, exactly what we want to see from Cat. And that's a tough Knicks team for sure. It's a tough Knicks team for sure. So that's a fun series. The best one by far has been Clippers Nuggets. I think we also expected that coming into the playoffs. It has been amazing to watch Kawhi Leonard back on the court playing like 2019 Kawhi Leonard, like he's back in Toronto. And I know the injury history and I know the jokes and I know all of this and that. But Kawhi, when he's on, easily one of the best players, if not the best player in the NBA, because he has no flaws in his game. He does everything at a high level. If he doesn't do it good, he does it great. He doesn't do anything bad. It's an all-around player. And I know people don't like this, but there's no antics. He's not chirping. He's not dancing. He doesn't have all these celebrations, and he's just out there playing basketball. I know people think Kawhi's a little weird or whatever the case is. I don't care. When he's playing basketball like this, it's must-watch TV or must-watch live. I supposed to go to one of the damn games, and I ended up not going. I regret it because when I was going to buy the ticket, it was like $60, and then I looked the next day, and it was like double because I was after game one. I was looking around there, and people were like, yo, this series has been wild. Obviously, the Aaron Gordon buzzer-beating dunk is something we've never seen before. It was funny because that was a terrible shot by Jokic, but Nikola Jokic has the luxury of putting up terrible shots because he's done a lot of good in Denver. And Aaron Gordon just fit at the right spot. He was alert. He did it. I think when I saw it in real time, I was like, "Oh yeah, that's in." And there was like a quick little second of like maybe it wasn't, but I saw like no, that was good. He basically was running into the locker room before they even reviewed the play. But that series is elite. I hope it goes 7. Just as a neutral, it's been so much fun. Westbrook has had his moments. Jamal Murray has had his moments. Norman Powell is contributing for the Clippers. Zoo looks great. James Harden is there contributing. Like there's some real deal players there. And back to the physicality, like I was speaking with the Pistons and Knicks, it seems like everybody's so testy right now, and that's what I love. Like it's the playoffs, seasons are on the line. This is when the players really get, in their bag. That legacy comes out, and all of these different things. I mean, if you pick any series, you could probably pick 2 players that have already had confrontations, right? You had Cat and Tobias Harris going at it, out of all people, in that Knicks Pistons series. Aaron Gordon and James Harden, the Clippers Nuggets series. Gordon was a second away from making a bad decision there. Like you go across the board, and it's just been dust ups and all things, and it's fun. It's fun basketball. If you're not tapped in, definitely tap in. The Los Angeles Lakers and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Had to take a second to myself to laugh. The Minnesota Timberwolves are up 3-1 on the Los Angeles Lakers. The series is heading back to LA for the Lakers to try to save their season in Game 5. And JJ Redick, former podcaster, salute to the podcaster union, played the same lineup for the whole second half of Game 4, which included a 40-year-old LeBron. He played, 46 minutes in that game? 46 minutes for him and Luka Doncic in Game 4, which they lost 116-113. In game 3, LeBron played 41 minutes, gave him 38 points. And that was the game that Luka had his stomach bug, whatever sickness he had. Now, just on surface, that was the last card JJ Redick had to play in game 4. Pure desperation. It reeks of desperation because the roster is not adequate to be a contender, because Lakers fans lied to themselves and thought when they got Luka Doncic, when they stole Luka Doncic from the Mavs, that this team all of a sudden was going to win the NBA title, ignoring all of the things in the past, including last year's playoffs, including last year's NBA Finals, where Luka was Luka and scored at will and is great on offense, and that defense continues to be a liability, continues to get hunted. Not only that, Julius Randle had the clamps on my boy, and Luka's gonna get his, and we know that. And you could look at the previous podcast episodes and last year's NBA previews. Let him score. It's not enough, because if you don't do it on both ends, it's not gonna be enough. And this is what I'll say about LeBron. Everybody's criticism is about LeBron, this, LeBron, that. It's crazy to me that a 40-year-old still has to be the bailout and the guy that's getting the criticism. I will say he took a terrible shot at the end of game 4. That was a bad shot. But the dude played 46 minutes. Like, he is 40 years old. I know this father time conversation is like, when's it going to hit? This guy's inevitable. No human is inevitable. LeBron should not be playing 46 minutes in a game 4, 41 minutes in a game 3, and still be like your protagonist. Like, that's not what LeBron is supposed to be at this stage of his career. LeBron with Anthony Davis wanted to be a number 2. LeBron with Luka wants to be a number 2. He just wants to be out there doing what he has to do. Instead, he's having to defend at the highest level because Luka is irrelevant defensively. Instead, he's having to play 46 minutes because nobody on the Lakers bench is good enough to even give him a little bit of rest. Instead, he's having to answer for all these flaws that the Lakers front office, for the heights they pulled, did not really build that team. And I know it was a short time, so we're not going to just put that all on them. But the Lakers fans, please accept that you were lying to yourself. It baffles me. It baffles me because I get fandom, and it's one thing, but living in LA, I try to have these conversations with Lakers fans for real. And you guys sometimes it's not clicking. Like, oh, we got Luka, we're gonna win the chip. Luka was in the NBA title in the NBA Finals last year. What happened? Clamped up by JB, got hunted on defense. He still got his numbers in, and he got packed up. It's the same thing. Nico Harrison is one Wolves win away from being able to enjoy his summer a little less stressful. And I will say this, man, not to give him credit, but he's it's looking like he might have had a little bit of a reason. I'm not giving him any credit because it's still a terrible trade anyway you slice it. But if and I've said this before, if the Mavs had stayed healthy, if Kyrie Irving does not get hurt, if Anthony Davis doesn't get hurt, that team in this playoffs would have went further than the Lakers. And I believe that then, and I'm not saying that just because it's now. Like, that team was built better at the moment to win. Now, it's sad. I'm a Bron fan. If you know me, you know I'm a Bron fan. I hate that he plays for the Lakers because I like the player, but now I'm rooting for them to lose as a Celtics fan, of course. But to me, it is just very eye-opening that this seemingly they're going to be out of the playoffs. I'm not saying it's done yet because we've seen stranger things happen, but seemingly they're done. And it's going to be a first round exit for them when the whole point of this was, let's take some stress off of LeBron. We have another generational talent and scorer, and even that is not enough for the Lakers. Austin Reeves is one of them players that is really great in the regular season, and then when them lights turn on in the playoffs, not the same. And it's not just him. We see that around the league. We see that with a lot of players in the NBA. You could, once again, pick any series and pick a player or two that is not hooping at the level they were in the regular season. It happens. I mean, is Rui Hachimura the answer? I don't think so. You have, I mean, Rui gave him 23 in that game 4. Like, he's giving him some decent run. Luka had 38, but if Luka's playing 46 minutes after a game, he has a stomach virus or flu or whatever the hell he has. Does that sound like a smart idea? For all the credit JJ Redick has gotten, for all of the applaud and his basketball IQ and knowledge, this seemed like shit. I'm waving the white flag because we ain't got nothing left. The bench: Jared Vanderbilt, Gabe Vincent, Jordan Goodwin, all donuts, all donuts, right? No points, 0 points. But they didn't really play because you had the same five out there in the second half. Jackson Hayes, don't get me started. Like, Lakers fans, I'm not saying this as a hater. I'm saying this as a basketball fan. Stop lying to yourselves, man. Because now this is yet another year of LeBron wasted. And I don't think this team was ever built to win a title this year anyway, but you guys had the false illusion because of Luka Doncic that was going to happen. And now you're finally realizing that that's not going to happen. I will say this, though. To the Lakers' credit, I think that they have a very important offseason ahead of themselves, and they could, if they bring the right pieces in, be a very good team next year. If LeBron, is still playing at that high rate, which I don't see him slowing it down completely, but the conversation LeBron is he should not be having to play 46 minutes. He should not having to put up 38 points and 41 and still lose. Like the things he's doing, they're miraculous. He's playing defense like Draymond Green status, like lockdown defensive status, blocks, rebounds, steals, all of that. But of course he's going to be gassed. Of course he doesn't have the same pop on his legs. Of course he doesn't have the same jump. Like little things you start seeing in his game is inevitable. So we'll see what happens in Game 5 and further on. The series is not over, but come on, man. You see how Ant's balling, right? Ant is right at him. He's looking like the real deal. He's on one. Nas Reed turning into Kevin Durant in the fourth quarter. Dante DiVincenzo is giving him, even though he's not running it up on the scoreboard, he's giving him some very quality burn and different things on the floor, especially steals and things of that nature. Julius Randle, for all the criticism he gets, has been pretty good on the defensive end, has been really good on Luka. He's locked in. Jaden McDaniels contributing. They doing this without Rudy Gobert even being a factor, and that's crazy because Rudy is too tall to be out there getting cardio in. But it is what it is. Enough about that series. Let's go Wolves. Was a 5. The Thunder are amazing, and we're not even going to talk about that series because it didn't really matter. It was light work. But I will say that the Grizzlies have some figuring out to do. And they have to figure out what direction that team wants to go in because at some point this season, they were like second in the West. Then they slipped. They got into the playoffs as an 8 seed. And then you get swept in the first round. Ja Morant is great, but what direction the franchise is going in, it's going to be interesting summer for them. And then the Rockets and Golden State Warriors, man, I just finished watching that game right before I hopped on the pod. The Warriors pulled out a close one, 109-106. They're up 3-1. Listen, man, I joked. Ime Udoka probably hates the Warriors. He's probably sick of them dudes, but they're trying, man. They're trying all they could do, and it's just not enough. Like when you have a veteran team like that, the Warriors have that experience. Like it's just Jimmy Butler comes back from that injury and is massive, especially in the second half of that game. He gets to the free throw line 12 times, hits all 12. Like it's just these little things that players that have been there before know what to do, and it's exactly like it's just happening the way that it typically does for the Warriors, which shouldn't surprise anybody. The Jimmy Butler trade looks better and better every day. Draymond is funny because he just only scored 6 points today, but he had 8 rebounds. He had that last play on Şengün, which was Draymond defense at his finest, and then he's running his mouth and doing all the yapping, and that's how it is. Like they're trying, man. Amen Thompson, Dylan Brooks, like Fred VanVleet had an incredible game, but to the Austin Reeves point, Jalen Green is another one of those players that had a great regular season and he's been a ghost in the playoffs. So I think the time has run its course for the Rockets. They put up a good fight, but they're playing against a very formidable opponent. It's showing. Let's go to the East. I already started with the Knicks Pistons. I already talked about that. Indiana Pacers, Milwaukee Bucks. Sad, obviously. Very sad about the Damian Lillard injury. Just an amazing player to watch, and things weren't right there to begin with, and he was already hurt to begin the series, and then he comes back on the court, and that happens. It's tough to see, man. But I want to talk about how salute to the Pacers because the Pacers they're doing exactly what they basically did last year. It's like we're just gonna score, we're gonna run, we're gonna score, and good luck trying to keep up. But the Bucks, man, like Giannis, Giannis had probably one of the most dominant closeout games to win an NBA championship ever. He made good on his promise to bring Milwaukee a title, and then that window closed faster than I don't know what. I don't know if Doc Rivers sabotaged that franchise. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I think it's curtains for that, man. I think that Giannis in Milwaukee is curtains. I think it's time to, I don't know. If I'm a team like the Miami Heat, right, who just got packed up, they done. They got packed up by the Cavs, swept in embarrassing fashion today. Like it was bad. It was bad. I don't even want to talk about the numbers, but they had little amount of points at halftime, and it didn't get any better from then. 55 points they lost by today. If I'm them, it's so funny because Bam Adebayo after the game was like, "There's gonna be a lot of changes this offseason if I know how the man with the silver hair works." Speaking of Pat Riley, and I'm like, Bam, you might be one of them changes, my boy. I love Bam Adebayo. I think he's great. But if I'm the Heat, bro, I am on the phone with Milwaukee. I am offering everything, anything, and everything. You see the way the Lakers stole Luka from the Mavs. Go after Giannis, man. Giannis has joked about wanting to play in a big market. Miami is a big enough market. A team that still has ambition. Go for Giannis, man. I think that's like all in. Bam and anybody you want. Let's go. Let's make it happen. It's gonna be obviously those trades are not easy to make happen, but after Nico and Rob Palinka's little heist, anything's possible, as KG once stated. I'm not gonna talk about the Cavs because the competition wasn't really there. The Cavs and the Thunder, one seed, and they showed why they were never gonna lose or be overmatched in those series. So I'm not gonna spend too much time there. But I do want to say on the Miami tip a few things. First of all, Heat culture is a lie. I've been saying that for years, and people call me a hater. I'm not hating. It's a lie. I want somebody to tell me what heat culture is. What is heat culture? Because to me, heat culture was Udonis Haslem sitting on the bench, staring people down like a tough guy. That was heat culture. Let's not get it twisted, man. LeBron going there and setting that big three up helped that franchise kind of build that relevance after Dwayne Wade had already done that. Salute to D Wade, legend, love him. But what's heat culture, man? If the Heat had a culture, Jimmy Butler wouldn't try to sabotage his way, force his way out of there in the middle of the season. Granted, he probably didn't help himself out either, but is Heat culture letting Pat Riley slowly make your superstars mad? Is that Heat culture? I don't know what Heat culture is. I truly don't. It's a lie that they've been feeding people um, because there is no culture there. And there hasn't been a culture there for a while, in my eyes, right? Like, Jimmy was a dog, and I'm not saying this I think Tyler Hero was good. I said Bam, I love him. When the Heat and the Celtics had their runs in these playoffs, like good basketball team. But when you have a culture, you don't go from being a good basketball team to being a joke, to not even being close to being a contender. From a finals appearance, from Eastern Conference finals appearance to that, where's the culture in that? There's no culture there. And to me, a big issue, a big reason is Pat Riley. Pat Riley is giving me Bill Belichick vibes at the end of his New England tenure, where like he was just doing more bad than good because he's old stubborn man who's not going to change, but nobody's going to tell him that because he earned the respect and is a legend in his own right. There needs to be some real serious conversations had. I think Pat Riley, it might be time. It might be time. Pat on the back. Thank you for everything. Move to the side because Eric Spoelstra is one of the best basketball coaches in the NBA. One of a brilliant basketball mind is somebody that you should be able to maximize his ability, his qualities. And right now it's not happening. And that's sad because for a team that has a culture, quote unquote, that's not what you want to see. A team that has culture, the Boston Celtics. That's real culture. It's in the banners. You know it's gonna come together, right? Nah, the Celtics series is funny to me. The Magic, listen, the Magic played the Celtics hard all season, so I'm not surprised by what I'm seeing in this series one bit. There's been a fight. There, I think they have a very good game plan of like, yo, we're gonna kind of run these guys up the 3-point line and get physical with them, and it's been working. I mean, it's not working to the effect that they're gonna win the series, right? Like everybody knew the Celtics are going to win this series, whether or not it's in 5 or 6. It doesn't really matter, but it's starting to, I think, bring those little bit of thoughts and doubts sometimes that people have about the Celtics and the way that they play. Like Chris at Porzingis, add him to the list with Austin Reeves about players that have not been good in the playoffs at least this season. But the good thing about the Celtics is they have culture. They won the championship last year. They know what they need to do, and they know exactly how to get it done, right? Whether or not you're seeing this right now because the Magic are giving them hell is different. But listen, man, the Celtics have to me, they have to toughen up a little bit. I still do think, and we talked about this last year a lot with the team, is like they play soft sometimes, right? And KP is out here saying, "Oh, we're not going to get punked by nobody," and Jaylen Brown, this and that. Man, listen, you can't let Cole Anthony run around and act like he's Pac. He's running around act like he's Pac? Like you can't have that, man. You know what I'm saying? Paolo is nice, but like and Wagner's nice too. Like they got those two are serious, but after that, like you letting KCP be in his mind be a menace, like nah, man, it's not. We're not doing that. So I feel like the Celtics got to make a statement, Game 5, put their shoulders down, pack these dudes up, and then you're seeing what the Knicks are doing in the Pistons series. Like if the Knicks are smart, they're gonna do the same thing to the Celtics, make it physical because Orlando's showing that physicality could be a way to make things shake against the Celtics. We'll see how Joe Mazzulla kind of responds to that. But Celtics pack up the Magic and look forward to see who wins the Knicks Pistons series, see how it goes. But listen, man, it's gonna be a fight. That second round matchups. I'm already looking ahead for all these series, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. So tab in, maybe we'll talk some more NBA playoffs as it continues. Maybe get a guest or something to come on and so it's not just me. So y'all don't think I'm being a homer and all of this, but I'm giving you real basketball knowledge off the top of the dome. That's what we do here, right? And then we're going to end this with Shedeur Sanders. I'm not really going to talk too much about this because I feel like a lot of it was overblown. He did end up getting drafted in the 5th round. He was the 144th pick in the NFL draft. He got drafted by the Cleveland Browns, also known as quarterback purgatory. But I just think the overreaction, man, and it's just the time that we live in, social media and different things of how people are reacting to things in real time. It's sickening, bro, because first of all, I'm not going to go too deep on this because draft and analysis, and there's people that are really in the trenches with draft stuff that like are very smart and brilliant and do a great job at this. But I'm going to talk about it from the very like minuscule level of how this breaks down. And they wanted to, spin narratives about this being the NFL being racist and being disrespectful and this and that and all these other things. Stephen A. Smith, who is more of a troll now than an actual journalist, try to compare it to Colin Kaepernick, which is absolutely asinine. It's not even close to being the same thing at all, like not even remotely close, but we won't even talk about that. Hey, man, maybe Shedeur Sanders was a little just overvalued in the public perception because of his situation, right? His dad is Dion. I'm not saying he wasn't good in college because he was good at Jackson State and he was good at Colorado, but maybe teams didn't see it that way, right? Maybe teams, franchises in the NFL that are multi-million, probably billion dollar corporations were like, yo, man, we're good on that for right now. Granted, there's not many teams in the NFL that needed quarterbacks to begin with, so that was always going to kind of skew how the draft broke down a bit and where he was going to go. But he didn't do himself any favors, right? Dion didn't do his son any favors, and this is where it gets like the waters get muddy because people are like, "Oh, it's the confidence thing and the arrogance and all of that does play a factor, whether you like it or not." I'm not going to say it was a racial thing. Not that the NFL has any moral ground to stand on, but let's call a spade, right? The draft process is like a job interview process. And in the real world, you're judged off of a lot of things. It's not just your ability as a quarterback. It's not just your ability as a potential employer. Everything comes into play. Everything, right? So maybe they're looking at his social medias. Maybe they're looking at him flexing money and cars and all that, which I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with. Get your money, a young kid in a good situation, privileged to have a dad like that, has a very gifted ability to be a quarterback. But all that stuff comes into play. Not only that, then he goes out and says, if you don't want to change your franchise, if you don't want to this and that, then don't draft me, right? So he's already approaching it in a way that teams are probably looking at like, I don't know who this dude thinks he is, but this not how it works, especially not in the NFL for teams trying to win games and win Super Bowls and keep a business afloat. Once again, this is a business. We're talking about a lot of money in these teams, franchises that all of the Quavos and the people that showed up at the sideline in Colorado. That was cool in college, man. It was dope. It got them a lot of national TV time. It got them a lot of attention and hype. Probably brought them a lot of money. That don't fly in the NFL, man. They don't. I don't think they really care about any of that in the NFL. They trying to win games. They trying to basically build these franchises up. And teams perhaps did not see Shedeur as that player that was going to be that franchise difference maker. Whether or not right or wrong, we'll see. But Kurt Warner, undrafted, won a Super Bowl, NFL MVP, Pro Football Hall of Famer, like Tom Brady, greatest quarterback perhaps ever, drafted in the 6th round of the NFL draft. It's so funny to me, man, how much stock we put into drafts and all of these things. Like they want to call it a slide. Maybe this was just a dose of reality. That's the way I'm seeing it. And I think that the way people try to spin it is one way, but now it's on Shedeur, right? Like now you definitely have to prove a point. If you feel like this was disrespectful, if you feel like all these things, now it's on you. The ball is in your court. Because if you don't prove a point, then what people are going to say? Well, they was right. That's why the teams passed up on him. And if he does prove a point, which he's in a good position to do so because Deshaun Watson injury, Cleveland hasn't had a good quarterback, a stable good quarterback in a while, so he could go in there and really start something. They're gonna be like, word, play with that energy. But to make it a racial thing to me, I don't know, it's kind of crazy because let's talk about somebody like Johnny Manziel that coming into the draft, teams had their little bit of, ironically gets drafted to the Browns, teams had their little bit of like, nah, we're good because of his antics and the way he is. Baker Mayfield, as an NFL quarterback, was still getting judged that way, right? Saying that they didn't like his attitude, they didn't like his antics. So I don't know, man. I don't necessarily like to look at it that way in terms of a racial thing, but once again, the NFL does not have a moral ground to stand on, so I'm not going to push it too much in either direction there. All I'm going to say is that this is how the draft stuff works, and I think he might have just been a little overvalued. I don't think he or Dion did themselves any favors. It's unfortunate, but is it really? He got drafted. Maybe he's not as high as people wanted him to get drafted, or he perceived himself to get drafted, but he got drafted. It's still a hell of an accomplishment. And now what you got to do is what you've been doing your whole life: play football, show out. And if you show out, go ahead, show them the watch, do all that. You know what I'm saying? But prior to getting drafted, all of that comes into play. And the way teams evaluate, the way scouts evaluate, aside from the fact, if you believe the reports that he wasn't doing these interviews really well, that he was being arrogant, all of this stuff, man, like all of this comes out. I don't know what you want to believe, what you don't want to believe, but a lot of the stuff that's out there makes sense. It makes sense for how this all unfolded. So hopefully Shedeur is good, man. Hopefully he has a long NFL career. Hopefully he has success, and nobody's wishing the kid bad. It's just like the way that all of this swirls around and people talk about it is it's incredible. With the kids, the prank callers, man, I'm not even gonna give that no attention. This is what I will say, and I've always said this. Some people think I'm crazy. People got to start getting beat up more often. Like the kid that makes a prank call, he probably hasn't got touched before. Like, he probably, I don't want to say, I'm gonna say touch because that's slang, but he probably hasn't got beat up before, right? He probably hasn't had a real situation confront. Because come on, man, like it's nasty. We live in a nasty world, bro. That's what it comes down to. And this situation has made me realize that in a lot of different ways. Like the dude is 23, man. First of all, my issue with drafts and putting so much stock into these young kids is we overhype all of them. Look at Zion Williamson, man. Like he got so overhyped in high school, and now he hasn't been able to live up to these grand expectations. Now people are just making jokes and he's a bust and this and that. Like everybody ain't LeBron, man. That doesn't come around often. You got to let these kids mature, learn. Maybe this is learning process for Shedeur as well. Adapt to different situations, but to put all of these expectations on these young kids, I get it. They're superstars in their own right already through high school, through college, but let them mature, bro. Like at 23, do you blame him? Somebody with money being the way he is? Like, if I had money at 23, I'd probably be wilding out too. And if not wilding out, but being flashy, you know what I mean? At 23, with a skill like that, with all of this pressure on you, with all of this attention on you, come on, man. He had Shensia sitting next to him. You know Shensia? You see it. You see the vision. But I've always felt weird about that with drafts. The other thing is like mock drafts are stupid. There's like 17 versions of them that come out. I don't want to disrespect nobody that does them, but come on, man. Like people get these expectations or these rather predictions and things like that wrong all the time. So once again, I think he might have just been a little overvalued. I don't think it was anything personal in terms of like we're not drafting him, but people perhaps they didn't want all of that attention. They didn't want all of that extra stuff that comes with it. Cleveland at the end of the day decided maybe a few rounds too late after they had already drafted a quarterback. But listen, man, we don't know what Cleveland does. They've been interested for a while, so I'm not gonna try to justify what they do there, but we'll see. We'll follow it along and we'll see exactly how this unfolds for Shedeur. But take it easy, man. Everybody just chill. Just chill. There's a little too much going on with all of those narratives, and it's like, bro, he's a kid. Let it unfold, and you're not doing him any favors by putting more of this pressure and attention on him. But it is what it is. That's it. Damn, I talked for a long time. I think that's it. I don't think you're once again going to listen to a podcast that talks about MLS, NBA playoffs, and Shedeur Sanders in the same episode. Definitely not one that does it this well and does it by himself because I'm like that. But all right, man, appreciate y'all for listening and tapping in as always. I'll be back very soon with an episode that I had circled on my calendar for a long time, and the date's almost here. So we'll get that going soon. If you know, you know. I have a guest with me. I'll have a guest with me, maybe two, but we'll leave it at that. Thanks for listening. If you tapped in on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, I appreciate y'all. Check the YouTube out. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Tell a friend and tell a friend. And stay safe out there, man. Stay blessed. Have a great weekend, whenever you're listening to this. Until the next time. Peace.